Hello, everybody, and welcome to At Your Own Pace.
When you're first starting out, it's gonna be hard. That doesn't mean that you don't belong there.
I can do whatever, and it's just me being a ridiculous dad that wants to do some good in the world.
Keep moving forward. It's like a Walt Disney quote. Whatever that means to you at that time, that day, that race, just keep moving forward.
I can do this. I am going to do this, and I will do this.
If you're an early morning, 4 a.m. alarm person to get your run in, or you're like me who likes to sleep in and so you'll run at 7 p.m. Either way, it's hard, and I'm going to cheer for you, get to your goals. And if you don't, I'm going to be the shoulder for you to lean on as well.
It's forced me to get myself uncomfortable. And I think I'm starting to get that comfort with the uncomfortable.
Why don't I deserve a chance to be happy and not beat myself up over a bad run?
In more ways than one, running probably saved my life.
This is where we highlight runners of all backgrounds, paces, and finish times, sharing stories that inspire, connect us, and celebrate our community. Where we stop focusing on the miles splits and we start focusing on the miles lived, because every runner has a story worth telling. You won't hear about PRs, but you'll hear about the mental battles, the moments of profound connection, the personal healing, and the sheer joy that's found on the roads, trails, and tracks. I'm honored to welcome today's guest, who is someone who really embodies what this podcast is all about. If you follow Run Disney Doc, you know that her running journey isn't just about race weekends or finish lines. It's about consistency. It's about community and showing up through every season of running, whether things are going great or feeling really hard. She shares the joy, the grind, and the quiet moments in between, and she does it in a way that makes running feel accessible and meaningful and not intimidating. So I'm excited to talk with her today about her relationship with running and how it's evolved over time, and how she balances ambition with joy, and what running at her own pace looks like in this chapter of her life. So I'm really glad that she's here. Devon, hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm good. For those that don't know, Devon just completed her 6-star journey in New York in November. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
I want to ask you real quick before we jump into our questions. And I know this is kind of like picking a favorite child, but out of all of the World Marathon majors that you ran, what would you say is probably your favorite?
Boston.
Boston. And why is that? Actually, I see your Boston shirt.
Well, because I grew up 10 minutes from the course, so that's probably it.
Did you spectate it as a kid, or?
No, I didn't really understand running for most of my childhood, pretty much until I was an adult. So no, I always thought it was crazy that people did that on purpose.
When did you start running?
I didn't start running until the very end of 2018.
Okay. Yeah. What got you interested in doing that?
One of my co-residents in neurology kind of challenged me because she had been doing a lot of races, and she's like, you should try to do it. Why can't you? Do it. And so then I did the Madison half marathon in November of 2018 as my first.
Awesome. So you just jumped right into half marathons.
Didn't want to stop.
Nice. Did you immediately go from half marathons to marathons, or did you kind of build up over time?
I did a few half marathons before.
Okay. Awesome. I want to start off first is talking about your running story and the evolution. And then you talked about how you started with that half marathon, but running has clearly played a big part in your life for some time now, right? We're looking at, it's 2026 now, so about 8 years. When you look back, how has your why for running changed from when you first started to now?
So when I first started, it really was just a challenge to see if I could do something that I never had any desire to do, if I just sort of pushed my mind to it. And when I started training for that first half, it was kind of in a very busy time in my life in residency. And it became sort of an escape from everything I was doing in the hospital, and an actual opportunity to clear my mind, really sort of an outlet. I know we say it's not therapy because you should have a real therapist, but it became still not just physical well-being, but mental as well, often needing to separate myself from really tough things going on. And then when it became the pandemic, it really was the only time I was doing anything that wasn't in a hospital. So, and it was in Boston at the time. So awesome. It became just a really necessary outlet.
Yeah, no, I completely identify with that because I think that running is a form of meditation. I agree with you. It's not the be all end all of therapy, but yeah, running has helped me calm my mind in moments where I really need to take a step back and try to get rid of the noise that's all around me. So I definitely identify with you on that. And you talked about, those hard moments and things like that. You've experienced everything from, your 20 marathons that you've run, from the joyful race weekends. I'm sure that you've had some really great Disney experiences to really hard marathons. Was there a moment during all of this when running stopped being about proving something and started being about something that was deeper?
I would say probably when I was doing my first Dopey Challenge, which is like the 4-day race in the winter that's coming up next week at Walt Disney World, when I was doing it for the Multiple Sclerosis Association of America, which I'm rejoining again next week for my fourth Dopey. And it just became a much more joyful experience. It was no longer, can I do this, but it's how much fun can I do, like actually have while doing it. And it wasn't necessarily about chasing PRs, even though those actually did come along the way. And I think probably doing a 4-day race, like back to back 5K, 10K, half and full in 4 days, probably like provoked me from, just kind of running for fun to like having to like work harder. And that led to the PRs, but it also gave me a lot more joy in running. So I would say probably that. And that would have been 2023.
Was that because of kind of the atmosphere and the experience of that specific race? Because I did Disney in 2021, and it was a very completely different atmosphere than what I've experienced during those other races. Was it because of that being a Disney race and the characters and the experience, or is it something else?
I actually had not at that point done any majors. My first major was about a month and a half after that. It was more just that I had really only done little like local races. My first full marathon was supposed to be grandma's, and it was in June of 2020. So that became virtual. And so at that point, I had only done like the Colorado Marathon when I lived there for a year, and then like Erie and Cleveland, neither of which are like thrilling, let's say. And so this was the first marathon where people were like smiling and happy, and like the other races people were really there to like do something, like especially Erie, it's like everyone's there to be cute. And and so this was the first time I was around people that like just enjoyed running. It was just, they didn't take it as serious. And so then it became like, oh, I could like dress up and have fun. Oh, I'm going to do that. That's way more. Yeah, no, we're going to smile and wear a tutu and enjoy the actual journey and not just the time.
I want to say probably that I want to do Disney again because my experience in 2021 was not great. But I think probably the biggest thing that I regret is not dressing up. I really want to do that next time I do it because I think that's probably something that would make the experience a lot better for me. And I think going from, I mean, New York, I did New York a few months before that, and going from that to Disney, it was like a complete like 180. And so,
It is, yes.
yeah, as someone who just completed New York, I know you could definitely agree with that. So when it comes to your relationship with running, how has that relationship matured as you've moved through kind of different seasons of your life, kind of from the beginning up until now?
I think really it's become less of just like a challenge to see like what I can do and like can I get the world majors done, to it's now I'm really just running because it's a hobby and it's supposed to be fun. I've had PRs along the way and they make it's like great, but that's not really like worth it for me because what I do for a living is very challenging and I don't want my hobby to become like a job.
Mm.
I don't want it to be stressful. And so that's why I enjoy things like Run Disney because that's not stressful for me. That's just fun. So after finishing the majors, I kind of said I'm not doing any more marathons that I don't actually want to do. Like if I think that course looks bad, cool, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to have fun. And so I'm doing like half marathons, ideally in all of the states, and dressing up like what someone said looked like a lunatic at my last race, like in 30 degrees and like a tutu and a sports bra. But just like having fun and just doing things that I want to do because they bring me a joy,
Mm-hmm.
or make people laugh on course.
Yeah, definitely. Have you done? I mean, your username is Run Disney Dog, so I'm pretty sure you've done. Have you done more than just the Dopey challenges? Have you done the other races?
I've done Princess also, and
Okay.
I this past year I did Wine and Dine as well.
Awesome. Nice. That's great. So jumping into talking about consistency, because you train for all these world marathon majors and then you've also trained for all these Disney races. On your account, you share months of this process and the steady mileage that goes into this long training cycle, which is not easy. We're talking like 16 plus weeks of training and balancing work, life, this all together. And your job, as you pointed out, is very demanding as a doctor. What does consistency look like for you when life is really busy or really demanding?
I mean, like from a literal standpoint, it just means that I'm waking up every morning choosing to run at 4 in the morning. Otherwise, it's probably not going to happen. But that is also something that kind of like gets my day going. So running is just part of my routine. And it means that on the weekends, like I'm not necessarily going out and doing tons of fun stuff because I'm going to have a long run. And everyone can relate to that, I'm sure, that listens to this. I have it set up perfectly so I can watch college football and NFL on the weekends, like on my Peloton. So it's like multitasking, so to speak. But I've also been known to like take pages on treadmills too. So it's just fitting it in. Like it needs to happen. It's going to happen. It also does lend to a lot more treadmill running, in part because of where I live. It's actively snowing and it has been for like 2 months, but also because I can multitask better.
Now, that I'm not an early morning runner. I hate waking up early just in general. And so all of my runs usually are after work or late at night. That motivation to wake up in the morning early and get that run done, I know that that's taken probably some time to get to it being kind of like a thing I am just used to and then I get done. But what helped you build that motivation to, the alarm goes off at like, let's say 5 a.m. and, you want to hit the snooze button, you want to go back to bed. What got you to be able to be like, I got to get up, I got to get this done?
I think it's because I knew if I didn't do it, it wasn't going to happen that day. Because like never when I come home, especially when I was in training, would I be like, let's go work out now. I was always kind of the person that would come home and like be like, okay, I'm tired and I'm going to bed in a couple of hours. So
Okay.
yeah, I've forced myself to become a morning person by virtue of exercise, I think.
You know what? I think in 2026, I'm going to try to take a page out of your book and try to wake up early if I can. I have a very poor sleep schedule, so
I feel like with a new baby on the way, that might kind of be necessary.
I'm hoping if there's one thing that really needs to change, it's that, because I would love to be able to be that person who gets up and gets it done and then can have the rest of their day to do whatever they need and not have to worry about it. So when it comes to, and you brought this up, when it comes to you finish the majors and now you're going to focus on run the races that are not ones that are, I don't want to say challenging, but ones that you look at and you're like, I don't want to do that. I want to go and do more fun races and things that'll bring me joy. And so moving into this mentality of racing, not for chasing hype, but for showing up, what's helped you stay committed, for example, when that motivation isn't?
I think it's because I just enjoy it. Like if I was sort of toward the ends of my journey, especially with the European majors, I was kind of like I just didn't really want to do it. I didn't want to deal with the travel, the time change, the running an 80-degree marathon in Berlin. Like that's just the kind of thing. Like I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is not going to be a part of my story. Like it doesn't mean I'm not going to do the majors. Like I love Boston with all my heart. I absolutely adored Tokyo, and Chicago's like, a drive away. But I'm just not going to go do things that I don't like truly find joy in and have much of a desire to do. Like I'm, instead of Boston to London, like last year, I'm doing Boston to Dollywood. That's way more enjoyable for me. It's, seeing a place I've never been, meeting up with a lot of my Run Disney family to do so. And that just is like so much like better sounding to me than I remember just dreading having to leave Boston to go to London. And then of course I got food poisoning twice in London. So it's just like a whole thing. So yeah, I just really decided that unless I'm like excited at the prospect of doing a race, I'm just not going to do it. And then I don't need the like motivation to keep doing it because I want to, because I'm keeping it as a hobby. I think a lot of people start to take running like too seriously, almost like it is like a task and it's just no longer fun. And it's like, why are you doing it?
No, it's funny. I've had a lot of people on this show who have said that same exact thing. Once it becomes a I have to versus I get to, then it becomes this big burden. And I've felt that in my own life. And it's in those moments where I need to take a step back and realize I'm taking this way too seriously. Like none of us are getting paid to do this. None of us are winning prizes and money and all this stuff. We're not on ESPN and we're not in the record books. Like, we are the individuals that are just going out there for the sake of it because we get to. And that's, I think, why people tend to find amateur like marathon runners insane, because it's like we choose, like we elect to go out there and push our bodies to such a huge extent by running 26.2 miles. And I've had a lot of people ask me just why. And you kind of just perfectly explained it, of just the fun, the hobby, and not taking it too seriously, and being able to kind of essentially prove to yourself that you can do this when things get tough. Now that, I don't want to say you didn't have anything to prove with the World Marathon Majors, but, obviously finishing all of them is a massive accomplishment, something you have to work really hard towards. And I don't know about you, but for me, when it came to running all of them, I tried to make progress between each one and tried to make it so that I could say, I started my first race with this and I finished with this race in my sixth one. This is like the growth that's been seen in between. For you, with progress now that you're shifting into this new mindset, how is that compared to earlier in your running journey?
I think just before, and it really is like the same thing. I think when I first started, I was just not embracing like each mile. I was really just like checking something off. It wasn't until probably like as far as this more serious marathons, if you will, or I guess prominent ones like Tokyo, it was the first time I was like really like looking around during a race and outside of Disney. I wasn't just like looking at my watch, like freaking out. In fact, I started my watch at the wrong time. And so I didn't really even know what time I was going to finish in. It ended up being my fastest of the majors, but I just like actually like realized I was like taking a running tour of an incredible city. And so that's something that I think the world majors throughout doing them is just an opportunity to see new places that I'd never been. And that's something that a marathon can bring you, as opposed to just keeping your head down, running, worrying about your splits. So I think that progress came throughout the last couple of years, because I did them between 2024 and finished in 2025. And so I think that that was something that I really embraced throughout them. Like we were talking about with New York earlier, just really getting a feel for the different like boroughs that you go through, and there's just a different vibe with everything. I think when I first started running, I never would have looked at anything. I would have just been looking at my feet, making sure I didn't trip over something.
No, absolutely. Same with me. And Tokyo is incredible. I love Tokyo so much. I just love the city in general, and I'm just jealous of everybody that's running the marathon
Me
again
too.
this year.
It's like the only race of the majors that I really have FOMO
Yes.
about.
Yes. I was really happy I got to do it twice, and my goal is to do it again next year and be able to bring my new daughter with us so that we can kind of introduce her to the world. It's funny. I just had a company post like a sneak peek of one of their singlets for that race. And I responded back to them being, I am so upset right now and have FOMO because I don't get to wear this and I can't wear this. And they were like, well, there's no year on it. So if you want to buy it, you could still get it. You could still wear it. But no, it's incredible. And actually, I want to ask you, because you had two really bad experiences, because I ran Berlin this year too. And that 80-degree weather, it almost took me out. It was ridiculous. And then you got the food poisoning in London. Which one of those two did you like more?
It's so hard because I hated them both so much, if I'm honest with you. Germany was just like personally hard for me because of like what had happened in Berlin. In London, I just spent most of my time in a hotel sick, so I didn't get to enjoy it. But I probably had a better time in London despite food poisoning. And I had food poisoning during the race. So that's my food poisoning PR.
Oh my goodness. That is crazy. Did you get sick during the run, or were you able to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
I
goodness.
threw up during the race. Yeah, that was fun. Didn't quite get to high five Gordon Ramsay as a result, but that's okay. But I still saw some friends from Run Disney that were there that lived overseas. So I think that really, like, they were cheering. And I think it's just so incredible, like the community that I've like been a part of with Run Disney, that like I'm in London and I was just like it was like right after I think I'd thrown up, I just saw these girls screaming for me, and I was like, it's amazing that I'm in London and there's people that are just cheering for me, just like I had in Boston,
Yeah.
And so I did not have that in Berlin. So I would say probably London, despite throwing up, is better.
Yeah, I had people. It's funny. So I run a Peloton group on Facebook called the Positive Peloton Group, and we've got like 80,000 members.
Wow.
When I ran Boston this year, or last year now, I guess, there was a woman that's in the group. She was like messaging me before the race being like, I'm going to be at this mile. I'm right by this building, right by this medic tent. Like, look for me when you run by. And to have some random person like scream my name who like recognized me was like something I'd never dealt with before. And then after the race, I had a couple of people send me videos that they had taken of me running past them. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that there are people that like actually like were cheering me on that I don't know, or people that know who I am that I follow, and they like were looking out for me, because I never had that happen before. Usually my races consist of my wife, and then in New York at least a couple friends come. But for all the other marathon, all the majors and everything that I've done, it's always been just her. And to have other people, just friends and things like that, recognize you and yell out your name. And I actually had a woman when I did 23, when I did New York, I was like in the pain cave. I got like severe stomach pain at like mile 15. Like I thought I was gonna like get really sick, and so I had to end up walk around the rest of the race. And I was in the Bronx, and this woman just comes up to me, starts screaming, running next to me, recording me, being like, "Go, Mike!" And it was a woman that I had volunteered with the day before at the Marathon Expo, handing out bibs, and we've been talking about, she was just getting in the running. She was asking a bunch of questions, and I was being like trying to provide her with some support. But she found me on the course and just started running with me. And she gave me like a massive boost of inspiration.
That's amazing.
I was in so much pain. I was like, I think I'm gonna die. But yeah, the running community as a whole is so wonderful when it comes to needing that support, especially when we're in our darkest times during those races. And when it comes to races that don't go perfectly, how do you mentally process a race when it doesn't meet your expectations? You talked about the food poisoning in London. When that type of issue comes up, how do you process that and get through it to be able to not DNF or DNS?
So I would say, especially because those are probably my two, I'd say, capstone worst races. Probably, there's a trail race that might be up there, but I would say I just kind of remind myself, particularly with the world majors, I had spent so much time and money to get to them that I was like, I am going to finish even if I'm crawling, and that's fine. I came here for 26.2 miles. I didn't come here for a certain time. I just need to finish. I just want to get it done. So that helps. I think if I had some of those problems and I was like local, like here, I'd potentially be like, nah, I'm good. Because putting your body through 26.2 miles is like not great. Anyone who's had like rhabdo, for example, like after a marathon is like aware that it's not necessarily the best thing you can ever do. But some of those opportunities for most people, those overseas majors will be a once in a lifetime, especially with things like London, and they're so hard to get into. It's like, you don't want to waste your opportunity. Obviously, if I felt like medically it wouldn't be okay, I would pull myself. Mm-hmm. But I was like just pounding water. I mean, there's photos of me with just multiple water bottles in my hands. Like you'd think I was like double fisting water bottles in London, and then I had brought electrolytes with me, fortunately. And ditto Berlin, which didn't have electrolytes on the course, but that's another story. But it's just, just doing whatever I can to make it through, and knowing that the time doesn't really matter that I finish in, as long as I finish and I'm upright, ideally.
Yeah. No, it's funny you brought up I spent so much time and money to get here. That was exactly what was going through my head when I was running Berlin, because I was at mile 17 and I called my wife. I was like, I hate this. Like I want to quit. I want to quit. And she was able to talk me down, but like that was the one thing that got me through. It was like I raised money for a charity. I spent money on a hotel, on flights, on this, getting into the race itself, on merch, for like even that. There's no way that I'm not going to finish this. And then I remember seeing the videos at Berlin this year when they got to the cutoff time, and people were like at the Brandenburg gate and they could see the finish line and they just dragged the gate across. I was so upset for those people because they were right there, and it was so disheartening to see them just like so close. They were probably at literally 26 miles.
Especially in that weather. I mean,
oh my God.
Someone was on pace. Sebastian was like, I think on pace to like break the record, and still went 2 minutes slow, which that's still a crazy time. But like, if you do the math and you think about it, then add that for normal runners, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, especially after how he finished in London, he did it phenomenal in London. But no, the weather I mean, I feel like all the majors this year were just ridiculous.
Boston I thought was fine, but I'm biased probably. And I guess New York was okay too. Yeah. But I'm never doing another 80-degree marathon. I kind of promised myself actually at Berlin, I said, if there's another marathon and it is projected to be 80 degrees, you're not doing it. It just felt like I was in a sauna.
It was ridiculous. The only other time that's happened to me was in New York in 2022. It got up to like 75 degrees and people were going left and right. It was awful. I mean, in Berlin, I saw they brought an ambulance on the course because someone went into cardiac arrest.
Yeah, no, I pulled off the side because I saw someone that looked like they were resting. I got screamed at in German, so I went away. But I was like, I can help, like, but I'm just like, okay, I'm not gonna get put in German jail, so I'll
Oh
just
my
leave.
goodness. Wow. I interviewed a doctor who ran London, and it was hot then, and he was helping people left and right during the race. I'm surprised they did that to you in Berlin.
It's because they didn't understand. I was trying to help, probably because I didn't speak German and they didn't speak English.
Yeah. So, I mean, based off of your account, based off of what we've discussed here, you're really honest about races and about the runs that don't go perfectly. So, when the training gets heavy, right? Emotionally, physically, when you are getting ready for these races, or say you have the perfect training cycle, like for instance, Berlin or London, and then you get there, you get ready for the race, and things either fall apart or they don't go the way that you planned. Besides what we discussed when it comes to like the distance or the traveling, the money, and everything, how do you decide whether to push forward, or have you ever pulled out of a race before?
I don't think I've ever pulled out of a marathon, but I guess if I think about London, I was pretty upset, even though I didn't necessarily like have a terrible, I had a terrible experience, I guess, but I didn't have like a bad finish time. But I was so happy with how I had done in Boston that it was a more important race to me. But I was like, I just had this like sort of bad taste in my mouth for like the marathon. So I went and did what every logical runner does. And I signed up for a last minute marathon that was like 3.5 weeks after London,
Mm-hmm.
in just a tiny little town in Michigan that I could drive to, and just signed up to take any time off work, just drove up overnight, barely slept, and just went out and finished like, I don't know, 12 or 13 minutes faster than I did in London, with barely any sleep or much running between the times. And that actually ended up being the race that I used to get into Boston this year. And it wasn't like the most exciting thing, but it was kind of like a meditation type marathon, because it was just by the water and it was simple and no thrills and not tons of people. The weather was fine.
And
I just kind of needed that.
I would assume it was probably partially to kind of prove to yourself, like, I can do better than I just did.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, even though it was humid, but that like I can not be throwing up during a race, and I can like feel not miserable,
Yeah.
Like I just needed to have that, because like my problem with London was that it came on the heels of Boston, and I felt like it kind of like took away sort of from Boston.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now, going back to the community that you've found, whether it's the Run Disney crowd or, other friends and family, with different shared moments that you've had during these races. I mean, I love the story you brought up with London about, you're literally, vomiting and sick, and these women are screaming your name, cheering for you, and giving you that extra boost of energy when you probably feel like death. How has running strengthened your relationships outside of the sport?
Well, it turns out that a lot of my friends have now just become runners. I have friends that have like kind of started running a little bit as a result, and then also I think a lot of people that I've gotten closer with over time are the ones that also run, because they kind of get me and don't think I'm crazy, because we all have those people in our lives that are like, why are you doing this? Like my parents, like my brother and I did what is my PR marathon together, which is like a really cool experience, because he had ran for years and years before I ever started. He's kind of more of like a trail runner, and was like joking that he would never do like a proper like road marathon. And so then I like challenged him to do one, and I beat him in it, which was like awesome. So I think that brought us closer, and was just a cool experience to get to do something with my sibling. So yeah, I'd say overall running has probably strengthened both my relationships with other runners, and then people who normally wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be.
That's awesome. Now, you brought up the story of London with those women that saw you. You can either talk about that, or if you had another story, a moment where someone else's support just changed a run, or how a race felt for you.
I have like so many, I'm just picking, since so many of my experiences have been at Disney, and so like I know so many people there. Like anytime I've done one of the like Dopey Challenge marathons, there's some switchbacks, and I like every single time I'm very fortunate that I'll be running in one direction and I'll see a bunch of friends like going the opposite, and they'll be cheering for me, and that's just always so exciting. There's like a challenging kind of part in the race where you're like mile like 17ish leaving like Animal Kingdom, and there's a switchback with people like going into it, or I guess it's 18 and 17, and it's just like nice to see like a friendly face, especially if you haven't really seen anyone around you for a little while. So that's always fun. And then during Boston, a good friend from Run Disney was waiting outside like one of my favorite childhood restaurants, because I had like mentioned it to her. And then like to actually see her there in Brookline as I'm like doing my first Boston marathon, and I'm like, I look up and I see my favorite restaurant, and she's just sitting there screaming and like high-fived me and like took a video and all that. That's probably my favorite moment of any marathon ever.
That is awesome. I'm replaying the Disney marathon for me when I did it in 2021, and that Animal Kingdom portion I remember, because that was the worst part for me, because I remember just staring on the highway and seeing just like an endless road, and then also seeing the people coming back, and I was like, I have to go that way and come back. I was like, that was actually the moment where I was like, I hate this. I don't. It was like at least at one part during a marathon, I say to myself, I hate this. Why do I do this? And then I'm pretty sure you can agree with this. As soon as you cross the finish line, you're like, all right, when's the next one?
One thing I'll tell you is the first time I ever did that marathon, 2023, I found out afterwards I had strep and I was febrile during it. But as you're coming out of Animal Kingdom, there was a goat, and like a physical, like a literal goat. And I say this because I just felt so sick. I started calling my friend when I was in the Blizzard Beach parking lot, who's doing the race from like a further back starting point. And I was like, I just don't feel good. I swear I'm like imagining things. I thought I saw a goat. And she's like, Devon, there was definitely a goat. It was there. It was
That's
there.
funny.
And I just thought at this point, I'm like going to die. So
Oh my goodness.
I have a lot of like love-hate for that Animal Kingdom turnaround.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I can do it again soon, because I wanna come. I always say I come back to these races for revenge, because I know I can do better. You know, talking about the community that you found, the friends that you made, whether it's, you know, strengthening ones that you've had with your family, whether you talk about your brother with being able to run a marathon with them and hitting a PR, or meeting your Run Disney friends either at the races or, you know, around the world like you did in London. How has running alongside others shaped the way that you experience the sport compared to when you run alone?
So I do run alone almost like 99% of the time. So that's one thing that I find enjoyable about races, is because most of the time I'm doing them with another person. I don't really do any races alone anymore. And if I'm at Disney, I'm most, other than the full marathon, although hopefully that'll change this year, I've ran them all with other people. And so it's just like a fun thing to do with friends. Like, you know, it's just like what we do. We run and we stop for characters and just have a blast, and then, you know, go do like theme parks, and then the next morning wake up again at 2 in the morning and run again.
I forgot the early mornings.
Yeah, that's what gets people. But if you think about the heat of Berlin, you'll understand why it's better to wake up in the middle of the night to run in Florida.
I remember starting that race in the pitch black. I remember waking up at 2 in the morning. I don't think my wife forgets me for that still. That was not fun.
Yeah, that's why Dopey's hard, because you do it 4 days in a row.
Yes. But like in terms of kind of the atmosphere and the feeling of those races when you run with other people and you're having that fun, you know, how does that kind of change your perspective around the race or the mentality around it?
I mean, it's really just running for fun, and it's not caring at all about the time on the clock when you finish. It's just a totally separate experience. It's also the difference between running for me like a half marathon, because essentially every half marathon I've done has not been about time. Like I've never raced a half marathon technically.
Okay.
I just, for me, like those other race distances are essentially only about fun. I mean, I've technically like won small half marathons and 5Ks and things like locally, but it's never been a thing where any of those races are about like hitting a time. Whereas the marathon, I have very separate. Like, I don't usually run a marathon unless like, and it doesn't mean that like I need to PR, but it's like I don't usually like stop as much during those races because I'm just like, this is a lot of time on feet. Like, I get sort of like, I can't, I'm so impressed with people who can be out there for 6 hours. I don't know that I have like the wherewithal to do it. Like, I'm all about running. I could run a 3 hour half, but like, I'd also like to run like under 3.5 for a full, just because by then I'm just like, I'm tired. I'm like, okay, I just want to kind of like keep it moving.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've found actually that getting slightly faster at my marathon time has decreased my ability to get injured tremendously, which is fantastic. Now, I just have a couple more questions for you. It's just about kind of your purpose and introduction to other individuals that might be thinking about getting into running or are just starting out with their own running journeys, and being able to provide them with some support. If someone follows you or wants to follow you and sees your story, and your experiences and your consistency, what would you want them to understand about running in general, whether it's your story or just about the sport that you think would be beneficial or help them?
I mean, just that it's like a hobby, that it shouldn't be something that someone's taking too seriously. And if it becomes something that doesn't bring them joy and that stresses them out or makes them feel, less than someone else, then maybe they're either not right for it or they're thinking about it wrong. Because I do see new runners that are like, just get very overwhelmed with the idea like, oh, I have to be doing this because that's what those people are doing. And it's like, no, you're running your first marathon. You shouldn't even be looking at the time on the clock. And, even after your first, like the time on the clock doesn't matter to anyone but you. And walking can still be a part of someone's marathon. There's no shame in that. I've Galloway
Exactly.
paced before. There's so many people who have achieved such great things by using the walk run method. It
Hmm.
really doesn't matter if someone's stopping and walking, like whatever works for them. And as someone who's been like in injury cycle multiple times, just because I was like anatomically, my ankle was not meant for running, as my orthopedic surgeon told me point blank. When you're coming back from injury, there's not really much better way than walk run.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's so many people that I follow who have hit really great PRs from doing the walk run method. I mean, shout out to Running Up That Hillary, who consistently does walk run methods, and she's been making such great progress. And so, so many people, especially new runners, like they think that they just need to like go out the gate as just running. And when I started running, I tried to just start running 20 minutes without stopping. And I think I could get maybe 45 seconds, a minute long running without needing to stop. And so removing that ego and knowing that walk running is still just as great as just running is something that so many people need to hear, because it can really help them understand that you're still making progress and you're still doing a great thing. Now I want to jump back to Devon at that very first marathon when you were egged on by your coworker to see if you could do it. And if you could go back in time and talk to Devon and give her one piece of advice from everything that you've learned up until now, what would that be?
I think it would probably be to be like less judgmental of myself, because that particular person maybe was a lot faster than me at that time. And I think was sort of like a voice that made me think that I wasn't ever going to be like a good enough runner, and that I would never like qualify for Boston, which at the time I didn't even really understand what that meant or care. And I just remember being like, oh, well, if I do Boston, I'll do it with charity, because that's like what I always thought you kind of did, like I thought like the way you did Boston, and that was an amazing feat. And I still think that. And so I think I probably could have been like a little bit more, I don't know, had more confidence in myself to be able to like continue to excel despite being around people that were much faster than I was at the time, and thinking that that made me like less good of a runner, just like we were kind of talking about. And it took some time because I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not that good at it. And then it was through just running for fun and during the pandemic and whatnot that I started getting faster. But I'm wondering if I didn't have such like negativity around pace and whatnot, originally being in a fairly quick area because I was in Minnesota, a lot of fast runners, and it's kind of discouraging, not running like the way that some people are running as times, like just seeing tons and tons of like really fast people, still people that I would still consider to be very, very fast. And just knowing that there's plenty of runners out there that are not trying to like OTQ, it's
Yeah.
like,
No, absolutely.
so it's just about finding the right community for you. And I think I didn't realize that that was a thing way back in 2018.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we think of running as this solitary sport because we see these, these professional marathon runners who are just running by themselves. I mean, they have a crowd, but they're running by themselves, focused on just their time, their pace, and everything. And I feel like sometimes we forget that there's a community that's out there that will support you and will help you get to the finish line, even if you feel like you can get there yourself. So my last question for you is about this podcast. The title of this podcast is At Your Own Pace. When you hear the phrase at your own pace, what does that mean for you? Not just as a runner, but also as a person.
I just think of doing everything the way that works for you, like not just literally at your own pace, which is from a running standpoint, but just doing things in life as it works for you. Whether that's forcing yourself to do 6 world majors between 2024 and 2025, you don't need to do that. It's just how it worked out with my life and my, the way I work, that doing combined trips made more sense. But everything can be done just the way that it is best for an individual person, and runners shouldn't have to compare themselves to other people, and just do things in a way that is feasible and makes them happy, and not based on what other people's standards are.
Hey everybody, before we get into our last segment, I wanted to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, and that is For The Run. For The Run is a running apparel company that creates really high quality shirts, hoodies, and everyday gear designed for runners who care about the why they run just as much as they care about how fast or how far they can go. Their clothing is comfortable, durable, and made to be worn on runs, to races, and in everyday life, all while carrying messages that celebrate mental health, community, and personal growth through running. If you're someone who believes running is about more than performance and likes wearing gear that reflects that mindset, For The Run is absolutely worth checking out. You can find them at forthe.run. And if you use the code FTR-Mike Runs Marathons, you can save 10% off your next purchase. So Devon, these last questions are ones that I ask every person that I interview. This first set is what I call the hot seat. These are just some quick, fun questions, just top of mind. Don't really think about it. Give me what comes off top of your head, answers, and then I have 2 additional questions just to kind of close us out. So my first question for the hot seat is trail or road?
Now road, but before I injured myself, trail.
What is your favorite running shoe brand right now?
For racing, Saucony Endorphin Elite.
That's a good shoe. I probably know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Early alarm or late run?
Early.
Long run solo or with others?
Solo.
Sweet or savory post-run meal?
Savory.
What would it be?
After New York, it was so random, but I really craved mashed potatoes. And I had them at the Italian restaurant we went to, and they looked at me like, really? That's okay.
That's awesome. Music, podcast, or silence on easy runs?
Podcasts.
And what is the one piece of running gear that you can't live without, and you can't say your shoes?
Beats.
And do you have a dream race?
Antarctica.
Well, that's a good one. I want to jump to my closing questions. So these are 2 questions that I ask everybody because I'm gathering some information to be able to share with other individuals. The first one is what I call the motivation library. So if you could pick one quote, mantra, or a line that gets you through tough miles, that you could tell yourself or that you've heard about that helps you get through those moments, what would it be?
I actually have this on a bracelet I wear for every marathon. I don't know if I can say it, but it says, just keep fucking going.
Yes, I love that. That is such a good quote.
It's great. It's so necessary. Berlin came real clutch.
Oh my God, I bet. Oh my God. Now, I want you to picture the Dopey Challenge that's coming up. You're on day 4, the marathon. You see the finish line. Mickey and Minnie are there. As you cross that finish line, what song is playing through your headphones?
Just where it is in my playlist, I often finish around Sweet Caroline.
That's a good one.
I should probably change up my list a little so I'm not so but I do finish my races around a very time.
You have your playlist not on shuffle, it's in like a specific order.
Yeah, I don't know. I sort of created it at one point because I wanted to start with sort of like slower songs because I try to run as much as I can on feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good song. I love that. But Devon, I really want to thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate how your honesty about your running journey, not just the big moments, but the quiet ones too, the ups and the downs, the struggles that you've had, the way that you balance joy, consistency, and grace through the different seasons of running is something that I think a lot of runners need to hear. You know, big, huge congrats on completing your 6-star journey in 2 years, which is just insane. That's a massive accomplishment, and it's something to be so incredibly proud of. And now you can rest, well, minus the Dobie challenge, but you can rest from the World Marathon Majors, which is phenomenal. And if you're listening, you don't follow her already, go check her out at Run Disney Doc. Her page is a great reminder that running doesn't have to look a certain way to matter. It just has to be yours. Again, I really want to thank Devon for sharing her story from completing all of the World Marathon Majors in 2 years to her multiple Dobie Challenge completions and the 20 marathons that she's run, starting with her first half marathon and growing up to where she is now. Her story of perseverance and of pushing through things when it gets hard and when there are struggles, both within and outside of our control, is something that I think so many people can identify with and something that can inspire many of us to keep going when we hit that pain cave. So again, I want to thank her so much for joining us. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in for this episode of At Your Own Pace. Whether you're walking, jogging, racing, or just dreaming about getting started, I want you to remember that you belong here at every pace. Until next time, keep running your story 1 mile at a time, and I will see you in the next one. Can we do it?